Hello, my beautiful ladies. Welcome to our podcast. And I'm really excited today because we're going to be talking about boundaries. And I think as women, this is one of our very major areas where we struggle. So I'm hoping that my angel spirits and guides that I have invited in will channel a message through me today to help you. And my wish is that we will connect heart to heart and soul to soul, because that is one of our main foundations for Shine Your Light, as well as love. So please know that this message is coming with pure love directly to you, all driven by God and our beautiful angels, spirits, and guides that are surrounding us today. I'm going to share a story with you that I've never shared before publicly. And I'm hoping that through my sharing of my own story, that it will help you to see the possibility of boundaries. Sometimes they're too loose, and sometimes it's hard to really know even what boundaries we should be setting. So I'm going to share how I've worked through some of that in my life. So now I'm in my 50s, and the story I'm going to share with you is when I was in my 20s. And it still is quite shocking to me, honestly, because even though I know I was young and naive, I came from a background, luckily, where my parents had a very loving relationship. And it was more loving, I found out later, than the average person would typically live with. So my parents would be an example, I would say, of something similar to a Hallmark movie. My dad was always very romantic and singing to my mom and making her breakfast and bringing it to her in bed, with a little flower on the tray. And they would exchange loving cards. And so just keep that in mind when I move into my story, because it's quite surprising to me what I was willing to put up with, and really not even realize I was putting up with something, to be honest. I was just living my life, and I thought I was doing a pretty good job. But looking back on it now, I'm really surprised, and I don't really know how to explain why I did what I did. But thankfully, as I matured and learned some life lessons, I was able to establish stronger boundaries, which made me happier in my heart. And that's one of the guidelines that I go by now is, do I feel happy? Do I really, have this uneasy feeling in my stomach? Because if you do, then that's probably a little niggling, from your soul, suggesting that maybe there could be a better path for you. So when I was engaged to someone back in my 20s, I would consider us to be best friends at that time. And I was with this person for many, many years. And it was really interesting because when negative things happen in a relationship, sometimes people will say, well, why did you stay? And from my own experience, the negative things happen so gradually that even now, when I might be sharing this, say, with my daughter, even now looking back, I can't really put my finger on the first time that it happened. So here we are living our lives, two young people. First, I was in my teens, then it turned into in my 20s. And I moved to a major city away from my family and my friends with this person who at the time was my fiance. And so I would say we had a very nice relationship, but so the but is going to be the key if you're telling someone a story and there is a but. That's usually where you take a deep breath and maybe try to figure out why the but is there and why you're willing to put up with it. So, what was occurring in our relationship is when we would get into a fight, he would call me a bitch. And interestingly enough, when I grew up in a household where my parents did not swear. And so I grew up witnessing nothing but love. And I never ever witnessed anyone swearing on each other, period, to be honest. And so when this was occurring, I didn't really know how to react. And so I would say to him, I'm not going to be able to stay in a relationship if you're going to swear on me when we're fighting, because that's not what I'm interested in. I want to have a family and I don't want to bring children into that environment. Now, isn't it interesting that looking back on it now, my reasoning to ask him to stop swearing was not because I deserved respect, which is really honestly probably where my mind should have gone if I was a little bit more mature. I was even at that moment, before I even had children, considering that it was in the interest of my future children that I did not have yet, that he should not be swearing on me when we're fighting. Now, the other interesting part to this story, that again I still find quite shocking, is if he would swear on me, because it did escalate. And so then if he would swear on me, I would swear back on him, which I did not think that that would be part of my personality. And even as I matured in life, after I left that relationship, I actually made a pact with myself and future partners that we would not swear on each other. And so anytime I ever got escalated, I never ever swore. So I'm glad that I reined that in. But I'm sharing this with you because I stayed in that relationship for probably 8 years. And I know for the first few years, this did not occur, which might sound unbelievable to some, but to my knowledge and to my best recollection, I don't think it occurred in the first few years. But it did occur, I remember, after I moved to that big city with him. And so there was another point where he stuck his middle finger up to me. And to me, that was the last of the outside of my boundaries that I was willing to accept. So the F word to me is very serious. But of course, so is the B word. When someone calls you a bitch, that's a very, very, very serious word. But my tolerance level was able to handle the B word, which I wish now, that I did not. But we can't change things. We can only move forward. And so when he did stick his middle finger up to me, I said to him, one more time. And if you ever do that to me again, I'm leaving. And so time went on, and it was several months later, and he did it again. And I didn't say anything, not to my recollection. And so the next morning, I woke up and he offered to get breakfast for us. And I said, nope, not today. I said, I'm done. And there was no big to do, no shouting, no screaming, no swearing. I had just internally in my heart decided that this was it. I gave you the warning. You didn't heed it. And so now we must be done. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is I want to show you the progression of boundaries in my life because now I'm very happy with the boundaries that I have, professionally and personally, but I really don't want anyone else to go through what I went through or to even stay in it now if you're in it. And I really want to help you just decipher even what is normal with air quotes. Because even though I grew up in a normal, loving environment, and he was quite loving initially, and I guess the confusing part for me was he was still quite loving, even up to the point where we broke up, to be honest. But I could not live with how he was acting whenever we argued. Because there's nothing wrong with having a discussion, and there's nothing wrong with having, what might even escalate a bit to an argument. But in my opinion, that has to be done with respect. And so, even though my boundaries were, I'm going to say, too loose for me, and probably too loose for a lot of people back when I was in my 20s, as I started getting older and moved on, to different relationships, some of the things that helped me, I'll say, rein in my boundaries a bit. One of the questions I would ask myself is, what advice would I give my daughter if she came to me with this exact same situation and described to me that her husband or fiance or boyfriend, when they would argue, would call her a bitch? And of course, I'm sure that you all know what I would say, even though you don't know me that well just yet. But I definitely would say, leave. Because if someone has that in them, and for whatever reason, and maybe in their defense, maybe they grew up watching that behavior inside or outside of their home. Maybe they picked it up from TV. I don't know where the habit came from. But for some reason, that was okay in their boundaries, but not in mine. And so I think when we're on the topic of boundaries, one of the core discussions should be, what are your boundaries? And if you're really not sure, because I feel a lot of people are really not sure, and I was one of them in my 20s. And if I was a betting person back in my 20s before I, moved out of my parents' home, I would have bet a lot of money that I would have had really good boundaries just because of the way that I was raised. But clearly, that's not what happened. So I think it's really important that before you go into a relationship, you really establish for yourself. I feel it would be really good to do on paper so that I think there's a lot of power in the written word. And it's a lot of power if you can go back and reread it. And it's also a lot of power, I think, when you establish those boundaries with your other partner. And so for me, I do not like swearing now in a relationship. Um, there's just, I don't feel if I'm respecting you and you respect me, I don't think there's any place for that. I don't think there's any place for name calling for myself personally. If you want to come to me and say, honey, I didn't really love it when this happened and it made me feel however it made you feel, then I can, really reflect on whatever that situation is and apologize. But I think when someone name calls, it just drops the bar down really, really low into a low vibrational space. And that memory cannot be erased. And really, if you're calling me that, what does that really say about me staying with you? What does it really say about my partner being able to call me that? I don't think that falls within the true love realm of what I consider, anyways, love. And another thing I would caution you on is to really think about what you think you deserve. And a lot of this probably starts with how you talk to yourself, how you view yourself, And I think it's really important to really question, where are you at with your self worth? Are you happy with it? Because if you have this beautiful self worth, you will then draw in other people that are attracted to you, that are of usually a similar vibration. So, just as an example, if I love myself and I'm very, comfortable and confident, and I really try to lead my life and live my life with love, and I start dating someone, and that person all of a sudden says mean things to me, I clearly, thankfully, Lord, would not put up with that now. I would say, "You know what? However you're choosing to lead your life is not acceptable to me, so we're not gonna work out." And I would end that very, very quickly. Most people that know me, again, either personally or professionally, um, do know my boundaries. And if they don't know my boundaries, they would find that out very quickly. And even on a professional level, if someone came into my office and wanted to really start cutting down, one of the people that work in the office or myself, I would not tolerate that behavior. Um, which brings me to the next point that I really wanted to stress, and then I'll go back to the self talk a little bit. I think it's really important to even practice and really feel comfortable and confident, so that if someone does speak unkind to you, and that might be an understatement, um, but you want to be able to handle that with a lot of integrity. So I've worked in many places before where if someone came in and tried to, I'll say, bully or, push someone around in the office, um, a lot of times, even adults, they have a really hard time standing up to another adult. And I think a lot of that is, you have to really own your space, whether it's personally, again, or professionally. And I'm quite surprised, that I'm quite comfortable with it now. But a lot of people, even in their 40s or 50s, sometimes they're not. And they let other people walk all over them. And then, unfortunately, how you act a lot of times in your personal life does bleed over to professional or vice versa. So if I'm getting ready to go on, let's say, a date with my spouse, or I'm going to get ready to go out again, whether it be for personal or professional, I'm talking very kindly to myself. And I think it's really important. That's why I want to bring it up to you, because a lot of times people don't even really notice, I don't think, how they talk to themselves. Um, I really go out of my way to say, "Oh, you look really good," or I talk to spirit a lot. So I'm like, "Thank you, spirit, for helping me do my hair and makeup," because when I was in my high masculine energy before, I wasn't so good at that. And so now I always joke and say, one day I'm going to have a glam team. But for now, I'm always asking spirit to help me with that. And so I'll watch makeup tutorials, sometimes, just so I feel a little bit more confident in what I'm doing. Because again, a lot of women might not feel comfortable in a particular space. And a lot of times it is hair and makeup when I'm talking to people my age or younger. And for me, and for a lot of other people, when you feel beautiful on the outside, it is a confidence booster. And so for me, I find it really helps me to build my confidence if I really practice, shining my light inside, leading my life with love, really shining outside, being extra loving, extra compassionate, extra kind, extra happy, extra positive, whenever I can. And I really make a point to do that, because if you allow the negativity of the world, because it's everywhere right now. And if you allow the comparisons, to creep in when you're watching TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or some of those other places, just try to remember to be kind to yourself because you are a loving, beautiful, amazing person. Your soul is beautiful. Your heart is beautiful. That's how God made us. No exceptions. And even though you might not be in a good space right now in your life, that's why we're here. We're here to try to help you and try to lend you a hand, try to guide you because we have all been there. Some of us are there now. Some of us have been there before and some of us will be there in the future. That's why I think it's so important for us as women to connect and really share our stories because every time I talk to a woman, it doesn't matter what country even she's from, we all have such similar experiences. And a lot of us are really, really hard on ourselves. Probably a truthful statement will be that we're all hard on ourselves. I don't think I've ever met anyone really that's not hard on themselves when you're talking about a woman. And so I think from the time, when you get up in the morning, really until the time you go to bed, try to be very aware of your internal thoughts. If you're not happy with something, either inside or outside, really pray about it. I always talk to spirit, I'm always talking to God, and I'm always asking for help. And also, if you shift a little bit, if there's something that you're not happy with, and if you tweak it a little bit, then that also really helps to boost your confidence. So if a little bit of makeup makes you feel better, if you dress a certain way and that makes you feel better, if you walk with intention and that makes you feel better, your posture, there's a million different things that could work. I'm just throwing out some ideas that have worked for me. I feel a little bit better even when I put on a small amount of makeup when I'm at home. It just makes me feel beautiful. And when I move throughout the day, I really want to feel beautiful inside. I really want my cup to feel full inside. And then I think that helps with the boundary setting because if you love yourself and you're aware of your worth, then you only let people into your space that also honor your worth. So if someone wants to come in and try to bully or push or speak to you that is not of a nice nature, you know, you, it's probably more empowering for you to ask yourself at that moment, is this really the best that I think that I can achieve right now in this life? Because I'm here to tell you that regardless of your situation right now, you are worthy. And no one deserves to be spoken to unkindly. No one deserves to be spoken to without love. And I've been on both sides of the fence. And so now I intentionally choose to really surround myself with those that speak very kindly to me and very loving because we're only here on earth, for a certain amount of time, as we probably are becoming more and more aware as we age. And life is too short, I feel, to just let other people knock you down because, each day that we wake up, we don't know how many more days we have on this earth. And so, for me personally, and I wish this for you, that you will choose to love and to be surrounded by love. So if we really connect and live our lives so that we're surrounded by people who respect us, then I think our lives would be that much more full, and then we can give back more. And sometimes it's hard to get out of a situation when you're in it, but I would encourage you to surround yourself with strong people and for you yourself to start, really building yourself up because you are strong. And sometimes I'll say the clouds come in slowly. And so you're really in the middle of the storm sometimes before you really grasp it. And I think that's what happened to me was the storm would come periodically, and it took me a long time, honestly, before I decided that this is enough. It was several years, and again, even then, I didn't put myself at the top of the situation and say, "No, I deserve better." I honestly decided to move on because I was doing that for the future children that I didn't even have yet. And I think as women, that's a lot of times, we put ourselves on the bottom of the rung and we put all of these other people before us. But I think in doing that, we have to ask ourselves, are those people worthy to be put on a higher rung than us? Because whether it's a parent that talks poorly to you, or a sibling, or a friend, or a spouse, or even a kid, I wouldn't allow any of it at this stage in my life. And thankfully, I've been in this place for many, many years now. But I just want to share it with you to try to help you to shape your boundaries. It's really for you. You're not doing it for anyone else. You're doing it so you can be happy every day because that's what you deserve. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. You deserve love. You deserve respect. We all want to live our lives with integrity and character, but really, what does that even mean? And I think by speaking nicely to yourself and really starting out with that self love, I think by setting up those parameters, then it's easier, to create those boundaries that you're looking for. So you can have this sacred space, this safe space when you go at home or at work or wherever you're trying to establish these boundaries. Especially at home, I would encourage all women to really try to create that loving, sacred space for you because it's really, really important, for the depth of your soul to be here on earth. You want to be happy. And it's very difficult for you to be at home and to be, coming with physical altercations or verbal altercations. And then for you to be able to go out and shine your light as brightly as you want to, that would be a very, very, very hard hill to climb. And we're all here to learn lessons, which I learned some very valuable lessons over the years, especially when I was in my 20s. And I'm glad I learned them because now I can sit here and share my story. And even though at the time it was very confusing, very painful, many nights of crying, back then, we didn't really talk to anyone else about it. And to be honest, it never even crossed my mind to even talk to my mom or any of my girlfriends about it. And so we're lucky now because there's a lot more conversation going on around these things. But I would just really encourage you to put yourself first because if you put yourself first and you say when you wake up every day, thank God I'm here. I'm going to have a beautiful day, God. Thank you so much. You set the intention then right from the moment you wake up. And then if you move throughout your day so that you say, you know what? I love myself. I am worthy. I respect myself. And one of my expectations is I do expect others to respect me. And if they do not, I'm sorry, you will not be in my life. And I have had to cut some people out of my life, which it is very difficult at the moment. But when you surround yourself with people, the question is who do you want to become? Who do you think you're worthy of becoming? Because if you want to live a life where you're living the best life you can for you and the best life you can to serve God, the best life you can to live your purpose, can you really expect to achieve the highest and best life that you can if you're not surrounding yourself with others that have respect and integrity and character? And it's not easy to do these things, especially when you're unaware, as I was. But I think the benefit of it now is that when you become aware, then you are gifting yourself that inner power. The inner power is you can now choose. Are you choosing to date a guy who is speaking to all of these other girls at the same time? And that's your choice if you do. My choice would be no. My choice is I want to connect with that person I'm with. I want them to have me on the highest rung and I have them on the highest rung. So we're honoring one another and we have individual boundaries which flow back and forth, with lots of similarities. We're all on the same page. And then magically, it appears, but it's not really magic. You're setting it up, right? Because you do have that magical power inside of you that if you are able to set up these beautiful boundaries for yourself, then others follow suit. And then all of a sudden, you're living a happy life. And it might sound really simple. And in some ways it is, and in some ways it's not. I think when I came to the point, the pinnacle, shall we say, of the situation, then when I really felt, you know what, this is not what my heart wants, and I left that situation. Looking back on it now, I'm quite surprised that the next relationship I went into, everything turned very, very, very quickly and very positively. So as soon as I made that, really mental impression in my mind that I was worth better than this, then the universe automatically opened that door up for me. And so I would caution you, to really reflect on where you are and why are you there? And maybe you're really, really happy. And if you are, then you know why you're there. But if you're not happy, then I really want to share with you that I know you have the power. And sometimes women don't really realize that they have the power. But honestly, I had the power even at 20 something, but I didn't realize it at that time. So if someone is listening to this now, whether you're in your 20s or younger, 30s, 40s, 50s, regardless of the age, a lot of us women are going through a very similar situation. And I really feel now that I'm being led to help women know that there is light at the end of the tunnel and you'll keep walking toward the light, I think if you know it's possible, because I always had this inner feeling, that it was possible. And probably that was in me because of how I saw my mom and dad, living throughout their marriage. Now, other people, probably the majority of the population that doesn't see that, would not even think that's possible because really and truly it was similar to a Hallmark movie. And so if you came from a house where there was fighting, or swearing or worse, then that might be your norm because that's all you've known and seen. But I just want to share with you that that's not my norm, and I don't think it has to be your norm. But the only person that can decide on where you're going to put that bar is you. And so for me, I always had my bar very high. And some people think it's too high, but I don't. And so thankfully, I do think it's high, and I'm holding other people around me, my kids included, and my partner included, and my friends included, and my colleagues professionally. I hold a bar very, very high for everyone in my life. And sometimes people say to me, "Wow, your bar is really high. You want everything?" And I say, "Yes, I do. And I'm quite worthy of having everything. And guess what? So are you." And that's the problem I feel is that sometimes our expectations are too low. And when our expectations are too low, guess what? That's what we get because we're putting that out to the universe. We're putting that out to God. And then you will a lot of times get what you ask for, even if you're not really asking for it verbally or in writing. That's why I'd like to maybe just get you to think about putting it in writing, because if you sit down and really say, what is it that I really want? I had this conversation with a young girl recently. She's around 20. And she couldn't list out, just as an example, we were talking about what would you want in a relationship. And she couldn't list it out off the top of her head when we were having this particular conversation one day. And so she said, "What about you?" And I probably listed out about 30 things pretty quickly. And she was stunned. And to be honest, so was I. But I've been doing a lot of inner work. I've been doing lots of work. I do hours of spiritual work every day. And I've been asking my spirits, angels, and guides if they could please lead me to joy. I really want to live a life that is full of joy. I really want laughter in my life because I lost it for a long time. I really want peace in my life. I want connection. I really want to feel chosen by my partner. I want to feel loved by my partner. I want to feel respected. I want to feel beautiful. Now, when I say all of these things, I also reciprocate every single thing that I'm saying. So when I'm asking God to give me a partner that shows me love, then I will ask in the next breath, can you please help me love more? Love my kids more, love my partner more. I've been asking today if God could really help me connect with women globally. Because when you get into this spiritual space, even though I love women, and this is my life's work now, but sometimes when you're in this spiritual space, you do go into a little bit of hermit mode. And I used to be very, very social, and I notice I'm not as much anymore. And so a lot of times it's hard for me to have just, I'll go say a normal conversation as opposed to a conversation, that I consider has more depth. And so I'm just asking God if He could help me be more compassionate, be kinder. There are lots of people, I'm sure that, God wants me to help. So I'm just asking Him today for the women that are going to show up on the podcast. Can you please work through me with whatever message you want for them to hear? Because my life right now, thank God, is in a stable, loving place. And it wasn't always. That's why I'm here to try to share my story to show you that it's possible. And I'm just asking God if He could help you because it's all about you. I want you to feel loved and to be happy and to be joyful and to have your life filled with laughter because this is why we're here on earth. We're here to enjoy it. I don't want you to live a painful life. I don't want me to live a painful life. I don't want my girls to live a painful life. I want all women everywhere to know that it is possible and you are worthy. But you really have to feel worthy. And a lot of people right now don't feel worthy. And you can see that when you go on TikTok and Facebook and different platforms. You're seeing women that are dressed scantily, offering their physical features, trying to get love from people by dressing sexy. And you know what I would say to those women? You're worth more than that. You are beautiful. You are sexy, but you need to start, in my opinion, by telling yourself that. We don't need other people to tell us that because honestly, you cannot fill up your cup by words of others. It has to start with your words first. And if you give that power to someone else, that someone else could fill you up on some days with nice words. But what about if they don't? Don't give them the power to tear you down. And don't give someone else the power to be the only person that can fill you up. You should be the person filling you up. You and your guides and your angels, because we all have them. You can speak directly, when you're praying to God and ask for God, for your angels, for your spirits to guide you and show you step by step. It all starts with one step. The other issue is if you haven't been told, maybe when you were growing up, how lovely you are, what a kind person you are, how smart you are. A lot of people didn't hear that growing up. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people were beaten down either in their house or even when they went to school, sometimes by teachers or other kids. And so we have to remove those painful words and we have to acknowledge them. And we have to even be aware that those words created part of your story now. And so, if we're going to create new boundaries, maybe if we look back, way back in the beginning when we were smaller, that might give you some insight on how you got to where you are now. And I've always been pretty lucky, I've always had pretty good self esteem. But look at me as an example. I didn't have good boundaries when I was in my 20s. And to be honest, I really don't know where that stemmed from. Um, Probably I was naive. Well, for sure I was naive. I think we give people the benefit of the doubt as women, sometimes too much, So you might say, yeah, he's really, really nice, but. And then we give allowances because maybe the person, came from a toxic background or picked up the bad habit regardless of where they did. It doesn't really matter to you or I. But a lot of times as women, we want to save people, we want to change people. And really and truly, that's not your job. It's not my job. And to be honest, no matter how good we think we are, we really can't change the other person. Because if it took them a lifetime to be who they are today, and if they're speaking nasty to you, you can't change that. And even if that other person really, really, really wanted to change it, a lot of times they can't change it. I've witnessed that throughout my life. I've met one person, honestly, that put in hordes and hordes of work into personal development. And they came from a very toxic background. And they said, no, I have a choice. I can continue this pattern or I can choose to be the change. And amazingly enough, they really did change. And they lead their life now with so much love. And to be honest, I'm quite fascinated, whenever I'm in this person's presence, because I've had a lot of people in my life as friends or as a partner. And the toxic behavior that they have, a lot of them, even after counseling, they knew what to do to kind of flip it, but they weren't ever able to do it for some reason. And again, I think that's just internally in us. We really have to want something and we really have to put in a lot of time and effort and energy. And sometimes, probably more often than not, um, people don't put in the time and the energy. But I want you to know that it is possible to have a nice life. It is possible to be respected and to be loved every single day. It is possible. But you have to really look in the mirror and you have to really look at yourself and really think, you know what? Am I worth it? Because when you get to the point where you can look in the mirror and say, I definitely am worth it, then you will choose differently. And I've witnessed this in my own life. And even sometimes, I've been in a situation where someone actually said to me, it was another lady, and she says, are you crazy? You already have it really good. And I said, that's how it appears to you. And yes, it's not bad, but it's not what I want it to be. When your heart and your soul are happy and you really feel that they're happy and you're connected and all of you feels like you're in this beautiful, magical, aligned experience. That's what I want. I don't want the chaos. I don't want the conflict. I don't want the lack of connection. I don't want any of those things. I've had them. And sometimes people say, it's not possible. And I say it is possible because I saw my mom and dad do it. And now, thankfully, I'm living it. I have beautiful relationships with everyone in my life. Thank God, because it hasn't always been like that. But I want you to know that there are lots of people in this world. And whether you're looking for someone you can connect with spiritually or emotionally, whatever it is that you're looking for, there are so many people on this earth that if you ask God to help you, if you ask the universe, to open this up for you, and you really truly want it, and you're really truly willing to serve your life purpose, and you say to God, I really want this. And I think I'm very deserving of it. And I think this is what you wanted for me, Lord. But can you please show me the way? And then be willing to listen to what gets dropped into you. You will find the way. Because one time I lived my life very black and white, and I was really in my high masculine energy. And I went to work and I was very high functioning, but my heart wasn't open, I will say, like it is now. I didn't have that soft side. I didn't have the vulnerable side. I was very nice, but the depth that I feel now of love, really and truly for life. And I know that sounds like a lot because I didn't always feel this way. I was always a happy person, but if you want to get to a point in your life where you really feel like you're living your purpose and you're really serving, that's where the joy comes in. And when you really can go out of your way because your cup is full and you say, you know, what can I do for my partner today that would be nice? Or what can I do for my kids that'll be nice? Or even my puppy, you know, you make them a special meal or you take them for an extra special walk. The smallest things in life can bring you so much joy, but it all starts with you. And I guess on the bright side, of course, there's many bright sides, but one of the bright sides that I was just thinking about is that I don't think we give ourselves enough credit as women. I don't think we really understand how much power we have within us. And there's a lot of power even in the yes and the no. Yes, I'm willing to put up with it, or no, I'm not willing to put up with it. So we don't have to complicate things. Just keep it very, very simple. Does your heart feel good? Does your soul feel immensely fulfilled at the end of the day? And if someone is causing you pain, I'd like for you to take your power back and think about it maybe this way. You're technically allowing that person to cause you pain. And why are you? And the flip side and the good side of that is you have the power to change that. You definitely do. And even though you might think it's a very large feat, honestly, I'm here to tell you sometimes it's not. I look back and I think, why in the hell did I stay in that situation for so many years when I was in my 20s? When I certainly did not have to. The only person that imprisoned me into that relationship was me. I have no one else to blame, not one other person. I was in 100% control. I can't even blame my partner because my partner was also young and he didn't know any better because if he knew better, he'd do better. But I knew better. And so therefore, I should have done better. And so I just want to encourage you and give you some hope and let you know that life can be beautiful every single day. But if you choose to settle, which sometimes we're not doing it intentionally, but even if you do it unintentionally, unfortunately for us as women, we still get that result. So I'm asking you to really dig deep and just really think about, am I happy? Could I be happier? What would make me happy? And just start from the inside of you. Because if you really start questioning, why am I here? Am I happy one day out of the week? Am I happy 7 days out of the week? If you really start monitoring when you're triggered, when you're sad, when you're happy, when you're joyous. I had a big portion of my life I wasn't aware. I was the opposite of being aware, actually. And I didn't laugh. Honestly, probably for years and years, it's terrible. There was no laughter, no joy. And now I have that on a daily basis. But again, sometimes as women, we're so busy putting everybody else ahead of us. Comes back to the boundaries. I put my clients ahead of me. I put my spouse ahead of me, my kids, my business, my dog, my friends, the community. I swear to you, everybody was ahead of me. And when you give everything away, you have nothing left for yourself. And at the end of the day, it's very hard to have energy left over to do anything nice for yourself other than fall into bed and probably go to sleep. It's very difficult when your cup is not full to be able to then give something back to yourself. And to be honest, when I was building my business, I swear to you, I gave so much away. I didn't have any energy left at the end of the day. And looking back on it now, it honestly was insanity. It was some form of insanity, and I would not, recommend it for anyone. So I'm here to try to help you beautiful women to be aware of a lot of the things that I was not, because it's sad when you get to 53, I am now, right? And you look back on your life, uh, for the 10 plus years that I was building my business. It worked out great for my clients, but honestly, I paid such a high price. My partner paid such a high price. My kids paid a high price. It's not good. I didn't even take time to visit my family a lot of times, that are not close to me. So I would have had to fly there and stay there for a couple of weeks. But I always made excuses. I can't leave the business. I can't leave my clients. There's too much to do. And you know what? You can't get that time back. You just can't get it back when it's gone. And when you're in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, you don't really, I didn't really consider that. I really wish I did. I really wish I would have had the insight earlier in my life, to consider these things. And even for me, I didn't have my spiritual awakening, till probably about 2019. And so I kind of joke and say, I wish, too bad I didn't have my spiritual awakening earlier, because I'm a much nicer, softer, kinder, loving version of myself. And now, all of the time that I was in my masculine energy, um, just do, right? Everything I did was get out of my way. I need to do. And I was a very good doer. But now I can sit peacefully, and just be loving, and be loving to myself, even, right? Whether that's a nice hot bath or a workout, I prioritize myself now. And before I would not. And it all comes back to boundaries. But really, if you follow the circle from start to finish, those boundaries really leave you feeling either really, really empty in your heart, or really, really full in your heart. And of course, I can't choose for you, but if I was to choose, I would choose for your heart to be full and happy. And the good news is, you are the only one that has the power. You are the only one that has the power to choose how you are going to live your life. And who are you going to surround yourself with? And if you have others come into your space and they're not abiding by your boundaries, how are you going to deal with it? For me personally, um, whenever I have to, I'll say, stand up and be tall, is how I imagine it. I really keep my emotions in check, because if you freak out, then it becomes about you freaking out, is what I always tell my girls. I always remain professional, whether it's a professional space or in my own private relationships, because I am the one who wants to live my life a certain way. And if I'm choosing to live my life the best that I can. There's no point in me yelling and screaming at you if you're choosing to speak to me poorly. I say to you very simply, I don't accept that behavior. I'm not going to accept that behavior. And so then I give that other person the opportunity to rise up. And if they do, that's wonderful. They can stay in my life. But if they do not, I am 100% fully committed that I will remove them from my life. Because again, I think we are all here to do the best that we can. And if I'm choosing to lead a life of spirituality, of serving women, of being full of love, I would be a fraud if I allowed other people to come in and speak disrespectfully to me and then come on the mic and be saying something different. Who I am on the mic and off the mic are the same person. And really, that's what I want for you. So, whatever it is that you're choosing, I would just wish for you to just be aware of who you allow into your space and only allow in the people that will honor and love and cherish and respect you, because otherwise your heart will be very, very sad. And I don't want that for you. And I hope that all of us women can learn from each other, because unfortunately, every woman I meet, and I'm sure every woman that you will meet who is willing to share their intimate stories with you, we all have so much pain. And that pain, a lot of the times, comes back to not having good people around us, not having people around us that will give us a safe space and that will give us the respect that we deserve. And unfortunately, the world has lots of people in it, and you have to create your own safe environment. How about if I say it that way? You have to really search out for people that are high level, high vibrational. And if you yourself are feeling that maybe you're not at the highest level that you can be, I would really encourage you to ask Spirit to really help you work on it. Because the higher that you rise within yourself, then the universe automatically, you're attracting those people, right? So the universe brings them to you. It has been my experience. I've heard lots of other people say the same, but the opposite is also true. If you go very low vibrational, you're swearing, you're screaming, you're all about the drama, you're disrespecting people, that comes back to you like a boomerang. And so, for the women that want to lead their lives, shining their light as brightly as they possibly can, serving God, all of that automatically brings you to a higher vibration. And as you move forward, following the guidance that your spirits, angels, and guides are giving to you, which is all very similar for us, then we all rise together. And the happiness then that you're searching seems very attainable. And the joy just comes bubbling out of you. It's a very beautiful thing. And I'm here to say that as a testament, it is possible and it is true, because thankfully, I do have joy and laughter in my life now every single day. And I'm sure I'll have more and more as I move along and connect with you beautiful women, heart to heart, soul to soul. So please remember that my wish for you is that when you look in the mirror every morning and every night before you go to bed, you can look in there and speak directly to your heart and say, you know what? I did the very best that I could today. My light was shining so brightly. I'm so beautiful inside and out, and I'm here to live my life purpose. And I'm going to do that with integrity and with character and with love and with purpose. And that is my wish for you.